Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thanks everyone for joining this month's CyberSmart Briefs session, shielding your wallet, how to protect your plastic from skimmers, scammers, and phishers. My name's Joe Jurgens. I'm one of the account managers here at Aberdeen. Joining me from the Aberdeen team is TJ Horner and Kyle Harritz. Kyle and TJ are going to be monitoring the Q&A session throughout our presentation and for the Q&A session after. I see a lot of familiar names, but just a little reminder, CyberSmart Briefs, our monthly short form content webinar. We try to do these just in a quick little presentation as a light overview on security topics, just trying to make sure that end users are secure on their day-to-day life. They happen the third Tuesday of every month from about 12 to 12:20. We leave plenty of time for Q&A at the end of them. We do want your feedback into other security topics, so please feel free to drop some info into the Q&A if you guys have questions about any other security topics. We also have a feedback form we've developed, so we'll be posting a link to that in the chat during the Q&A session. And again, that Q&A session or section is monitored throughout the webinar, so feel free to drop stuff in there. So let's hop into it here and talk about a brief history of in-card security. So in 1950, American Express was the first large-scale bank to introduce a credit card. It was printed directly onto paper with an account number, customer information, looked very similar to a Social Security card. It wasn't until almost the 60s, actually in 1959, that we saw the first embossed plastic cards similar to the ones we use today. In the early 1960s, IBM invented the magnetic stripe that we still use today. The first cards with it, released in 1969, it was around that time threat actors realized, hey, we could just take these cards and use them. So thieves would do exactly that, steal credit cards and use them as it was swipe and go for the most part. That is until 1984 when France developed microprocessors and personal identification number or PIN, which added extra layers of protection to the payment process. However, these chips weren't standardized internationally, and in 1994, Europay, MasterCard, and Visa began the development of the EMV chips with the first specifications coming out in 1996. Those are the chips that we still use in our cards today. So while security has built into cards has developed, there are still many threats to your plastic, and more importantly, what it links to your bank account. Some of these include skimmers, which can come in a number of different types, um, or number type of. Sorry, it can come in skimmers, which happens in a different types of ways, such as shoulder surfing, magnetic stripe skimmers, RFID or radio frequency identification or NFC or near field communication skimmers, phishing such as email phishing, scamming such as fraudulent websites, and malware. So let's talk shoulder surfing. Goodness, I am struggling today. Although it is one of the oldest ways people still steal info, it's something that actually happens today. Traditionally, somebody would look over your shoulder, steal your PIN and information from your card, but somebody eavesdropping on a phone call where you're paying for bills or using cameras to record ATM screens and PIN pads are also common types of shoulder surfing. So what you can do to prevent this from happening is, you should be aware of your surroundings. If somebody's standing right behind you at the ATM, kind of looking over your shoulder, you should always be covering the pin pad with your other hand or a piece of paper if you have one available. Use tap to pay whenever possible. Don't say your card number on the phone in public. Not using public Wi-Fi for transactions, on e-commerce websites, are all common ways to prevent shoulder surfing from happening. The next one we wanted to talk about, and something you've definitely heard about in the news at some point, it's a real threat and happens on a fairly regular basis, both locally in Madison, is card skimmers. In December this year, there was actually a card skimming device found at a self-checkout station in Germantown. Somebody was using a checkout and needed help from a grocer there, And when they turned their back to talk to the grocer, somebody actually ran up and put a skimming device on the machine they were using. Just it can happen that quick. So you really got to be paying attention. There's also been some found even down the road from our office. There's a gas station that one was found at. So, what is a card skimmer? There's a couple of different types, like I alluded to before. There's the stripe skimmers and ARFID skimmers. Magnetic stripe skimmers are probably what you think of when you think of a card skimmer. It's a device placed on top of a card reader used to steal card info or pins. So what can you do to prevent being tricked by one of these? You should always be inspecting card readers. Are the buttons hard to press? Does the top part wiggle at all? Is it similar to the card readers around it? Can you see any extra wires or circuit boards sticking out? There's some other things that you can look for that are being put in place as evidentiary, um, signs of a card skimmer being put in place. Like there's tamper tape on gas station pumps now. There's also, I know at least at Quick Trip, they've got little metal bars over their card readers, so you can see if those metal bars are covered, there's probably a skimmer put over top of those. So, an extra step you could do is even using gas pumps in line of sight of the cashier when you're at a gas station. They're most frequently going to be put on ones that are outside of views of the cashiers or even cameras. The other type of card skimmers are RFID or NFC. Again, that's radio frequency identification or near field communication. Although it is possible, it's far less likely to happen. A threat actor would need some sort of relay array like the one pictured, and to be in close proximity to your card, as the range of communication in those cards is minimal, no more than a couple of inches. That's why sometimes it's really difficult to use the tap to pay to find that right spot, is because that range of communication is so small. So they would need to get close to you. They would need to be able to basically press a device against your wallet to be able to steal that information. So just something to be wary of when you're out in public. There are ones that people will build into laptop bags. So just kind of be on the lookout for that. Another example of how it's done is placing an NFC chip and a sticker with a QR code. This actually happened at an airport where somebody would put their phone close to the sticker to scan the QR code, which was for quote unquote free Wi-Fi, and then they were actually charged money for it automatically using the NFC communication in their phone, which a lot of people have Apple Wallet, or Android has their own payment system, and it would just automatically charge them $5 for using the Wi-Fi. So there are some simple prevention tips, such as keeping multiple cards in your wallet. It actually makes stealing that information pretty difficult. You can also use an RFID blocking wallet. I know there's all sorts of name brands out there. Ridge Wallet is a prime example of that. However, most experts say, this is not necessary, as this is sort of active. It's not that they have to put something down and just can forget about it and collect card information. They actually have to be going out and hunting for that card information. You should also not be scanning random QR codes to begin with. However, you can ensure there won't be an automatic charge to your phone if you do stuff like that, by turning off the NFC or near field communication setting on your phone when you're not using it for tap to pay. That's something that I personally do anytime I'm going to use my phone to pay something. Turn it on really quick and then just automatically turn it off. So, um, phishing, we've spoken about lots of times. This should all be more of a refresher than anything. Threat actors use email, phone calls, or text to create a fixed situation, trying to get you to give up information. In this instance, credit card information or bank account information. I've got an example of a simulated phishing email that I got earlier today. It's just one of those ones where there's a couple of weird instances. I don't have a Google Play account set up with my work account, so that was my first red flag with it. So, prevention is obviously, don't give out personal information in email. That should be your de facto. I'm not going to give this up. Check the message. Is it addressed to you? Is there spelling errors? Is it from a trusted sender? You can hover links in an email to see where it will take you, so you can see if it's actually to a legitimate domain or a spoofed one. And then, The other prevention is go directly to the company's website. If they're pretending to be a bank, call your bank to see if it was them emailing you. In this instance, it was Google Play. I could go on my phone and see, oh, did I get a notification on Google Play about this instance? And usually they're not going to notify you about some sort of vulnerability. It's just going to be an automatic update that gets pushed out. So scamming kind of goes hand in hand with phishing. Often you can't have scamming without some sort of phishing that goes into it. So threat actors will create fake websites or pretenses to try and get your credit card info, like a fake e-commerce store or quote unquote Microsoft calling you to try and get your bank account or credit card info. Threat actors will charge you for a product or service and never deliver it, or they can actually just collect your credit card info and use it at a later date. Preventions for this one are pretty simple as well. Use a credit card when shopping online. They offer a lot more protections than your debit card, and it's a lot more secure for your own money that way. If your debit card gets compromised, you're kind of stuck with some of those charges versus a credit card. There's a lot more security for you as a consumer. You can also opt to use a virtual credit card number instead. That way you can easily monitor how it's being used and set a limit for that specific card number. So let's say, I've got a card set up with Amazon. Well, with Amazon, you can set a virtual credit card number and say, hey, I'm paying for Prime. It's $20 a month. You can make that max charge $21 a month. And that way, if anything above that goes in, it'll automatically deny it. So there's some settings that are really helpful with those virtual card numbers. You should also only be buying products online from trusted retailers. There's a lot of fake retailers out there, so just ensuring you're actually going to a legitimate one is key. We've got some tips about that in one of our references later. Another final way, or one of the final ways that threat actors conceal your credit card info is actually through malware, which is a software designed to take data. It can be downloaded automatically when visiting a website or clicking on a link in a malicious email, or even downloaded when downloading legitimate software from an illegitimate place. Malware can do many things, such as accessing files and financial data, recording keystrokes on websites to save credit card information and passwords, even access information saved in browsers. We understand it's convenient to save information in browsers. However, there's not many security protections in place, and it just makes it that much easier for threat actor to get access to that information. So, prevention for this should be a breeze. At home, you should be using some sort of antivirus or anti-malware. Only install programs for trusted sources, and again, don't save card information in browsers. It's The convenience isn't worth the risk in that. Uh, we do have a couple of additional tips for you. Just use a credit card at gas stations. Don't save card information on websites. Again, review your credit card statements. If you see suspicious activity in there, you should be notifying your bank. If you find a skimmer somewhere, call the police or the sheriff's department, depending on where you're at. That's something that you should actively be looking out to do if you find one. And again, it's something that's actively happening. There's hundreds of videos and news stories online about card skimmers being found in the wild, or somebody finding one at a gas station and the attendant being a little bit weird about it. And it is actively happening. There was an article in 2016 about it being Madison being specifically targeted by a group of people looking to skim credit card info. So we do have some helpful references in here for you guys, just some quick read articles. Here's actually the FBI's article about skimmers and how to identify them. There's some really good information in this one. I referenced some of that in here, but definitely worth a read through. And they actually have more pictures of examples of what skimmers can look like, or even how an ATM with a camera installed on it may look. Um, Another helpful resource for you guys is CNET. What is a virtual credit card and how do you use it? Just got some quick tips on how to set up a virtual credit card number for shopping online, or setting that up for those automatic payments. Um, and the last one here is Reader's Digest, actually 12 signs that shopping site is fake. It's a pretty quick article, just 12 quick tips on helping you identify fake shopping websites. So that's it for my section. I'm going to pass the torch off to you, TJ and Kyle here for the Q&A.